The iceberg of food YouTube runs deep, with many personalities shooting into the algorithmic stratosphere, just for preparing or simply talking about food. Chefs, travelers, or just people who sit at home stuffing their faces. There's a lot of white noise to sift through here, but as a small potatoes food YouTuber myself, I'm now going to tell you who is or isn't worth watching by rating the ones that have drifted into my view over the years. I won't be reviewing any soulless content here like BuzzFeed or Tasty or whatever other shit is backed by listicle Silicon Valley money pit shit sites that are probably laying off workers as we speak. Only fresh, farm-raised, organic content creators. So if you don't see your favorite food YouTuber here, it's because they simply don't matter and your taste is objectively shit. Anyway, starting us off here we have me. Yeah, my content sucks and the only thing worse than the quality of my videos is the quality of my audios, which puts me straight to the F tier. Unless you enjoy this, in which case, please subscribe. But moving on from my failures, we have Mark Waynes. This guy creeps me the fuck out. I'm not going to pretend that I'm even remotely familiar with his lore or backstory, but whenever I travel, I look up food-related content from wherever I'm about to visit, and his haunting visage appears on screen. So from what I can gather about Mark, he has been everywhere in the goddamn universe, and dragged his family along to sit off camera and watch him taste everything, stare into the camera like a raccoon on crystal meth, and say, "Wow, oh wow." Useful for the extensive catalog of cuisines he's eaten and showcases, but also deeply unsettling, like a creepypasta creature that's materialized into reality. D tier. Future Canoe is a recently viral sensation who migrated to YouTube by way of TikTok. He mostly tests out other creators' recipes, but peppers in reviews mostly in and around Manhattan, with an exceedingly self-deprecating humor and monotone delivery. His cooking and sense of humor revolve around his habit of not having or bothering to get the necessary ingredients, or following the recipe instructions, which leads to him making mistakes as a result of his carelessness. While his zoomer humor makes his content enjoyable to consume, his script writing, particularly in his outros, denote the soul of a true writer, something which I hope to see him push further in his content-making career, as relying on his jokes, both literal and through editing, sometimes feels stale. But for now, he goes in the B tier. Better than average, still room for growth. Moist Meter. Charlie and Not Charlie are two of the dumbest dudes to have stumbled their way into the algorithm. You probably know this specimen from gaming, but they also occasionally talk about food, which makes them my problem. Now, when I say dumb, I don't mean I think they are genuinely stupid, but if you watch them for more than about 5 minutes, one of them will inevitably say the dumbest thing you've heard all week. But it's harmless stupid, you know? Stupid the way a small child or golden retriever is stupid. You can't get mad at them for thinking fast food and Oreos are the absolute pinnacle of gastronomy. You shouldn't trust their opinions or that they could even boil a hot dog without setting the kitchen on fire, but there is admittedly humor in watching their primitive gamer brains struggle to articulate thoughts and form opinions. Not serious content, but occasionally entertaining, a solid C tier. Sip and Feast is, at least in my opinion, a severely underrated channel. It's basically an Italian dad from Brooklyn showing you how he makes meals for his family. You're not going to get any serious inquiries into the history of dishes or a complex scientific explanation for why anything is done, but you will gain a better understanding of what separates good versions of many classic Italian-American dishes from bland ones. I personally have picked up many pointers in becoming a better home cook from him, and that home cook focus is a lot of what makes his channel great. He's not going to tell you to bake bread from scratch just to make a sandwich or buy expensive ingredients. Hell, his recipes often include how much shit costs from Costco. This channel is great for anyone who wants to improve their self-sufficiency in the kitchen. A tier. Vincenzos Plate. This guy's an asshole. He's an Italian that lives in Australia and is the embodiment of the stereotypical Italian who gets butthurt when anyone messes with his favorite Italian recipes, which includes logic like, you shouldn't use panko breadcrumbs because they're Asian, so they should only go in Asian dishes. But for good measure, he's also a massive hypocrite. According to him, if you don't make Italian dishes like they do in Italy, it's not really that dish. But if you change recipes from places that aren't Italy, that's fine, you can still call it that, which he does. In fact, he will literally say that the original recipes are wrong because he likes it this way. Also, if other Italian chefs do something differently from his grandmother, they're also wrong. If you're specifically interested in understanding how some Italian food is made, he might be useful, but otherwise, a certified D tier. Alex the French cooking guy. Now obviously you have to have a strange relationship with food to devote your entire life and or channel to it. Alex takes this to a new level. I have watched this man fly to Turkey to meet metalsmiths to better understand what makes a good pot. I have watched this man design and build a stove for his apartment just to make better fried rice. An engineer by trade, Alex's content feels more like the strange diary of his journey to understand food and/or descend into madness. It's weird, and at times overly sentimental, but the man knows how to spin a story. I understand that he's currently on hiatus, but his content is still an entertaining, albeit strange trip that is on the cusp of being an A, becomes just short and ends up in the B tier. Uncle Roger is a curious case study in food YouTube lore. An Asian man playing an exaggerated stereotypical Asian character who makes fun of other people on the internet for making Asian food poorly. What's fascinating to me about Uncle Roger is that his bit is effectively being to Asian food what Vincenzo is to Italian food. Only Uncle Roger is periodically funny. They both embody the "if it's not this way, it's not real" philosophy, but while Vincenzo annoys me because I already know Italian food, I don't know shit about Asian food, so I'm more accepting of Uncle Roger's criticisms. Back in the 90s, there was this trend in comedy where stand-up comedians like Louis Anderson and Margaret Cho constructed entire acts based on imitating a family member with a funny voice. That character would then become like 95% of their comedy routine. Then they would get a sitcom that only lasted a few seasons because it turns out that no one wants to listen to a comedian do the same impression over and over again for long periods of time. There's only so much a one-trick pony can do before audiences grow tired of it. From what little I understand about Asian cooking, Uncle Roger seems to know his shit when it comes to food, but his shtick has a very limited shelf life for me. And I predict that in a few years, when that routine has worn out its welcome, it will be considered in the same vein as Chocolate Rain. C tier, nephews. David Seymour. I hate this little shit. I don't have any reason to hate this little shit, but I hate this little shit. Like Future Canoe, he primarily does other people's recipes, but unlike Future Canoe, he's completely unlikable. I don't know precisely what it is, but his personality is like that kid you went to high school with, who was in the drama club and had wealthy parents. He isn't knowledgeable, charismatic, funny, or charming, but his parents bought him some nice equipment to film with and hire some people to push his content to 500,000 subs, all while making nothing interesting or intrinsically valuable. F tier with me, bud. Jolly/Korean Englishman. I don't think I've ever encountered anyone who has seen their content and didn't like it. I'm not saying those people don't exist, but I don't know them. For those that don't know, JKE are two absolute powerhouse channels by British creators Josh and Ollie. They travel around and mostly talk about food with the demeanor of two best friends, because they are. This creates a very natural, friendly dynamic that doesn't feel forced or try hard. They are also the polar opposite of mean-spirited, meaning that if you're having a hard day or going through some shit, you can always count on them to brighten your day. The one criticism I will level is that maybe in the last 6 months or so, I've noticed that their reactions have begun to drift into the realm of exaggerated for content. Things have felt a little less natural, which is why I'm gonna have to slap them in the better than average A tier. Alvin Xiao. Just as with food itself, good things take time, while great things often take an amount of time that feels like eternity. In the world of food YouTube content, that is never more applicable a principle than with Alvin Xiao. You may know Alvin from a series in which he cooks a dish that takes an unusually long amount of time, like his 48-hour cookies or 100-hour lasagna. In the intro to this video, I said I wasn't going to use any corporate channels like BuzzFeed or Tasty, but I'm bending that rule a little bit for Alvin. Because Alvin and his two channels are art, in its purest sense. His first channel, Alvin Xiao, has just 8 videos uploaded in 4 years. While other channels crank out a continual pace of content, Alvin uploads a recipe video and it is a work of art from start to finish. The production quality and music are immaculate, and he has taken this further with his second channel, Alvin Xiao Films. 1 year, 5 uploads, each an intimate examination into the lives of people who operate restaurants. That's 2 channels, 4 years, and 13 uploads, but each is to such an absurdly high degree of quality that it has viewers craving for more. The Michelin star of food YouTube, an easy S tier that I can't recommend enough. Maddie Mat. Every time I hear this guy's voice, I instantly start reaching around for a length of piano wire to use either on him or myself. I cannot stand this guy. You ever see a clip from that horribly distasteful movie where Rosie O'Donnell plays a retarded woman? Maddie Mat. is like someone who did an impression of that character, it made people laugh, so he decided to never stop. If you got out of your car at a 7-Eleven at 3 in the morning and saw this person standing next to the door, you would get right back in your car and pray to a god you don't believe in that you don't make eye contact with him. His earlier videos look like they were filmed in the kitchen from that famous drug PSA, and he looks like he fits right in there in a crack house. F2. I know a lot of people like Babish, but I don't, let me tell you why. Is his content creative? Sure. Has he worked hard to develop decent kitchen skills without ever having worked in a professional kitchen? Certainly. But the reason I don't like Babish is because he represents the absolute worst of the internet. Now, I don't know much about marketing, my subscriber count should make that obvious, but what I do know is that there are, how shall we say, shortcuts to building and growing your audience. If you're really stupid, you can just go out and buy subscribers and views online. This is a terrible idea, though, because once the interactions you paid for go away, you still won't have an audience. Just a suspicious channel with a few thousand subscribers that no one is actually watching. But there are not as stupid ways, which is to pay for interactions on other social media sites to boost your visibility. This is scrutinized much more heavily now, but before it was, you could get a ton of eyes on your content by manipulating sites such as Reddit, which is exactly what Babish did. Oh, hi Reddit, I just started filming myself making food videos with top-of-the-line recording equipment, production, and $1 million voice. Babish, to me, has always had that sort of uncanny valley vibe, where it's not corporate or inorganic, but it sure as hell isn't the just some guy filming in his apartment feeling that he's trying to be. It's sanitary, lifeless, soulless, unfunny, D-tier. Action Bronson. Okay, for those that don't know, Action Bronson is a former professional cook turned rapper with a long history of producing food-related content on TV and YouTube. Credit where it's due, he knows his shit, but it's still possible to have both of those attributes, yet still produce content that's not very entertaining. And a lot of that comes down to personality. Action Bronson grew up in Queens, and if you've ever interacted with someone from Queens, you already know. They have this attitude like they genuinely believe that growing up in Manhattan imparts them with knowledge that no one else in the world has access to. Like they would walk into your house and tell you things about you like you didn't already know. On top of that, Bronson talks like someone who has positively fried their brain with drugs at this point. The result of which will be he will take a bite of food, look up, and confidently say, "That's like crack." Oblivious to the fact that this is the third time in the episode he used that exact expression. Also, it wasn't all that clever the first time. Another issue I have is that while it is interesting to watch him explore hidden gems in whatever locale he's in, there's been a recent noticeable trend towards high-end, fine dining haute cuisine. Now that's fine on its own, but watching him eat lavish food and absurdly expensive wine while making outlandish burnout observation like, "That's like fucking the first time you, like fucking... that's like crack," and seeing wealthy elites laugh and treat him like some ridiculous parody of the lower class leaves a bad taste in my mouth. Credit where it's due for all he's accomplished in music, food, business, and entertainment, while not being killed by Ghostface Killah, but pretty hit or miss, C tier. Speaking of assholes, we have Dave Portnoy. Now, I just mentioned what people from Queens are like, but despite not being from Manhattan, Dave has that same affectation, the type that tries to utterly dominate any conversation he's involved with. So if you want to see something fascinating, watch the video he does with Action Bronson, and you'll see how the person not from Manhattan wilts before the genuine article. Anyway, like most assholes, Dave is a controversial figure who founded Barstool Sports and reviews pizzas on YouTube. Now, maybe I'm biased because I've never taken pizza this seriously, but when someone talks about anything for a length of time, at a certain point I'm just like, yeah, okay, sure, whatever you say. It's not that I don't think pizza isn't a food or can't be taken seriously, I just don't care enough to be skeptical. And after hundreds of reviews, whatever his opinion is just, sure, I guess. But he's an expert on the finished product. He doesn't seem to know or be able to articulate anything on the construction, which means at a certain point it becomes uninteresting. C tier. And in a similar vein, we have the Chicken Connoisseur, or Chicken Connoisseur. You may remember this dude going viral for looking like a small child dressed up as a businessman, reviewing chicken wings, chips, and a chicken burger with distinctly British slang, which aided in his channel blowing up because chicken shops and London street culture are both largely foreign to most people. I think he's since made a couple attempts at expanding his brand, but has struggled both in growing his audience and the production of his content, with many people attributing his initial success to the video editor. My thinking is that, similar to Dave Portnoy, unless you're heavily invested in the London chicken shop scene, there's only so many reviews you can watch for places you'll never visit, before the sameness of it all loses its novelty. Also in the C tier. Mangi is a super friendly, super funny, but sometimes unintentionally funny Korean woman who makes traditional Korean dishes and was so influential on YouTube that she has been recognized by the South Korean government for introducing Korean food to the West. Personally, I knew nothing about Korean food or cooking when I first watched her make Korean fried chicken and tried to replicate it myself. And even though I wasn't even close, it sparked a passion to expand my knowledge as a home cook that has lived on to this day. An absolute YouTube legend and icon and an easy S tier. ProZD. Oh, this fucking guy. Okay, so Seungwon Cho, aka ProZD, is a YouTuber by the way of Vine and Tumblr. Success on these platforms led to him becoming a pretty accomplished and legitimate voice actor, appearing on shows such as Adventure Time, various animes, and the Pokemon series, which is also what led to me thinking this guy is an asshole. See, a few years back there was a controversy in the voice acting world, which raised questions as to whether or not it was okay for a voice actor to voice a character of a different race. Cho was one of the people who was very vocal that this practice is not okay. So, okay, if a character belongs to a certain race, the voice actor playing them should also be of that race. Then, Cho began complaining online that he was only being given auditions for Asian characters. You mean the very thing you were advocating for? Yes, because what he actually meant is that people from certain races shouldn't be able to voice characters that aren't their race. But he should be able to because reasons. And the cherry on top, when someone responded to his complaints by pointing out that, with the existence of anime, Asians make up the overwhelming majority of voice actors in the world, Cho responded by saying, well, I don't speak any Asian languages, so I can't have those parts. So, essentially, Cho is the type of person who expressly supports discrimination against his fellow voice actors, but will unironically complain when that same discrimination is applied to him. Cho can be genuinely entertaining, charismatic, and funny, but his food content is the absolute worst. He has a series where he tries every item from different restaurants, and does so while not only providing the absolute worst commentary, but also making the absolute worst decisions. This motherfucker will eat corn and say, "It's corn." This motherfucker will have an entire kitchen table covered with all the food from a fast food restaurant, but will save the fried food for last, even though it has the shortest shelf life, and then complain that it's cold. He has nothing interesting to say, nothing of any value to offer. Rock bottom F tier with me. Food wishes. S tier. Straight away. The Julia Child of YouTube. And if you disagree, you were wrong and more than likely an utter disgrace to your family. If you were to Google obscure dishes from a country you've barely heard of before, and then search for one of those dishes on YouTube, there's like a 90% chance the first result is going to be a Food Wishes video. Chef John and Food Wishes are so old, YouTube itself was probably formed from the ether of the universe just to contain its greatness. Chef John is like that teacher you had that made whatever subject he was teaching easy to understand, while also continually being corny and funny. And unlike many YouTube chefs who tell you to spend an entire day making something, Chef John will show you how to make damn near anything as simply and in a little time as possible, all while telling you that if it isn't perfect, don't worry about it, it'll still be good. Chef John is the literal GOAT of food YouTube, period, the definition of S tier. That's it, that's the tier list. Don't like it, don't care, but make sure you subscribe. Later.